Just admitting everyone in. I'm excited to get going in a minute to talk about personalizations and successful prospect engagement. Okay, it looks like we've let the first cohort in. Great. So we've set this up as a more as a Zoom meeting instead of a webinar, which allows more interaction. So we just ask that you mute yourself to start. And then if you do have any thoughts or questions or want to engage, there's a way to raise your hand in the little Zoom bar. You can just somewhere, where's there, or whatever, just wave your arms or interrupt, and then we can happy to hear from you. We'd love to make this more of a conversation than just a straight presentation. So just another minute to let a few folks in, and we'll get going. Okay, my name is Shane Sparks. I'm the CEO here at Enrollment Resources, and we're very, very happy to have our guest, Nick Colombo, who's the Director of Marketing at Gurnick. Nick is a client. I think, Nick, we're friends now. He's an incredible source of knowledge. And we're going to lean on Nick a lot to kind of share what's on his mind and what is happening with Gurnick. So if you don't know who Gurnick is, Gurnick was founded, you know what? Okay. Gurnick was founded the same year as Enrollment Resources back in 2004 and has been wildly more successful than Enrollment Resources. Nick, we were just chatting. You said Gurnick's got about 3,500 active students. It's kind of typical yearly enrollment.
We enroll about 3,500 or so a year. Don't quote me on it, but it's somewhere in that ballpark.
Whatever. It's thousands, not hundreds.
Yes.
Great. So in the vocational school landscape, Gurnick's been wildly successful. You've got 6 campuses throughout California. You offer certificates, diplomas, bachelor's degrees, the whole gamut of program offerings.
Yeah, the other thing that's not as apparent in this listing is we have a lot of online clinical models. So we've entered into other states with some imaging programs where we're able to partner with affiliate sites where a cohort from Nevada, Florida, and Arizona will all be together online, and then they just go out to a site in their backyard and do the hands-on training there. So that's been an interesting model. It was pushed forward faster in part due to COVID and the online learning model. And I know we're going to get into the trends of pre and post COVID and things like that. So that's one of the positives that came from it.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. And then, so if you don't know us, we've been around a long time. We work with well over 100 school systems in North America on helping them get more enrollable inquiries. So I'm just going to set this up really quickly. And so, because I want context around this notion of personalization. So we know that the buyer's journey, right? From maybe I want to go to school to enrollment, there's steps along the way. Broadly, it falls into this awareness, consideration, decision kind of model. You can use different words for that to describe that journey. But what's important about it is that we know empirically that the farther we nudge somebody along, right, before they make a buying decision or, decision to enroll or not to enroll, that we increase our odds if we're deliberate about how we move them along this continuum, right? And so this data comes from an analysis we did a few years ago where we looked at prospects that had gone through one of our assessment tools, so 2,200 prospects with a whole smattering of schools. And we could identify as they went through the survey, they kind of touched on different steps of this funnel. And we could directly correlate improved conversion rate through this continuum, right? And so currently what we have is that most schools have in their kind of toolkit to communicate value, like what we call a value proposition in marketing. are, we're good at stating benefits, right? We're good at communicating why there's value in coming to our school. We're good at communicating student outcomes. Hey, you've got X amount of placement rate. We've got strong language that describes how we're different than others, right? And we're good communicators, and that we're effective at driving that prospect to the next step, right? That's kind of the current tools in the toolkit to help move prospects through this continuum. The premise for today, and most of where our discussion is going to be around, is this kind of idea of personalization. And so it's our belief that the next kind of phase of marketing is mass personalization, where every prospective student kind of has a unique experience in dealing with your school, right? So that could be they get different website content, they get unique email campaigns that are tailored just to them, that we can use AI agents that help create this personalization experience, right? And our view is that this notion of personalization is really where AI is making an impact, or will make an impact in the marketing of education. And so, but there's some challenges, and this is a bit of a blue sky kind of a endeavor right now, and that's partly what we're going to be talking about. There's some challenges in it, and I'm going to get Nick to speak to that in a sec. So logistically, even knowing what to say to people is going to be a challenge, right? Because we don't know enough about our prospects to even be personalized, right? It's kind of an idea more than a reality. So maybe Nick, as a starting point in our conversation here, just can you describe where your head's at in this kind of idea, and where you think Gurnick is and where you see it going?
Sure. So I think it's obviously an evolving conversation as the technology becomes more available and makes this easier to accomplish. Um, in terms of, it's always a fine balance between the ideal. I mean, clearly we want it to be one-to-one everywhere. And then there's the reality, right? We work with very finite resources. I don't know how big your marketing teams are. Our team's lean enough that I'm hands-on way
Yeah.
more than I care to admit as a director. But what it allows is you're getting in the weeds, you're more agile with a small team. You can start to test little things here and there. Everything from drip campaign logic through automation to create emails that are unique to users based on any number of criteria. I think the main thing is, what are people doing today that's personalized, right? The easiest thing, everyone does it, and it's almost to the point of like, is the first name, right? Like, hi, first name. You're interested in X program at Y school.
Yeah.
Everybody has the same thought, and what ends up happening is you start to feel like you're in the twilight zone. Especially as a student these days, you're comparatively shopping with multiple schools and you're looking at three, four, five plus. And what ends up happening is you get the same type of messaging, the same type of tone all at once. And I think, Shane, you may or may not have talked about that, but kind of putting yourself in the shoes of the student can be difficult unless you literally go through the process, going through your website, going through your inquiry source experience, filling out the form, filling out the quiz, and then filling it out for multiple schools with your actual info and seeing what happens, how much
Mhm.
volume of messaging you get, what is the tone and approach of it. One school may be pushing an open house, one may be pushing coming in for a tour, but you quickly realize everybody's coming at you hard and fast, and then you start to go, okay, now I understand why my prospective students are a little reticent to answer my call. They're starting to second guess inquiring to so many places at once and getting that, what I call, again, hit over the head messaging, right? Come to my school, come to my campus, do the open house, let's come in and talk, and really changing up that approach to be more aligned with what we're able to learn about them both early on and progressively. And not just because Shane gave me the money, but his tool is phenomenal for this type of thing. I'm kidding, by the way, on the money.
Yeah.
But the quiz is able to give a lot of information, right? It's able to add more profiling to the leads that you get from a form or a landing
Okay.
page when they take the quiz. And you're able
Hold
to go
that
more.
thought. Yeah, sorry, hold the thought on the quiz because I want to touch on just one thing before that.
Okay.
And that's this. Okay, so what the tools that are currently available to us versus what we need to have in place for this whole thing to work, right? Because to me, that's the real challenge. Because sure, we can personalize on, hi, Nick. I see that you're interested in the whatever program you filled out on the inquiry, but it's superficial, right? I don't know anything about you, right? And so in broad terms in marketing, there's this idea of like the ideal customer profile or student personas or target market, right? Like they're different words for the same idea, which is we construct this idea of who we're trying to help, right? When we're for the what we call top of funnel marketing, right? So if we're trying to, I don't know, build a pitch for a program, we kind of make up this, we fabricate this idea of who this person we're trying to help is. And there's some things we can do to make that a bit more true. And so one of them is we maybe do student surveys, right, where we poll some of our student base to kind of understand what is making them tick. Um, Most people don't do it, but it is a tactic. We've had some schools, they do elaborate surveys on like what radio stations you listen to and what's, but it's hard to make sense of in a way that's actionable. And it tends to focus on demographics more than we call psychographics, right? So demographics is the superficial, psychographics is the what's in the what's in the heart of the prospect, right? What's really driving that buying decision. Nick, you guys do an interesting thing with your staff when they're onboarding to help them better understand that kind of the experience from the prospect's point of view when you have the mystery shop. Could you talk about that for a second?
Yeah, I think I may have skipped skipped prematurely on this part, but yeah, going back
Yeah,
to
no.
it, when you are filling out and experiencing your inquiry process in other schools, again, there is more competition than ever. People are used to shopping around, right? They're always looking for options. They're looking at reviews of different things, but they're putting their feelers out to a number of different options to see what happens. And what invariably happens with schools, and we're guilty of it as well at times, is they inquire about a particular program at a particular location, and you do this with 4 or 5 schools, and you put in your real information, which I've had my team do, I've had our admissions people do, and anyone really that is willing to do it. You can create a Google phone number if you're worried about, your personal number, but go through the process, put in your actual number, your actual personal email, apply to a few schools and see what it's like. Look at the volume, look at the tone, look at the approach. First off, you're going to get inundated, right? Everybody's coming at you hard at once because speed to lead is a thing, and it's true. You want to be able to reach out quickly because we know that the first person to build rapport with that prospect is likely to secure them as a potential student. But more importantly, we all think straightforward, right? Oh, they're interested in this program. I need to get them in for a program open house, a tour at the campus to go through the specifics of that program. But doing this 3, 4, 5 schools at once, you start to understand why they're so hesitant to take your phone call because they're going, oh my gosh, I've made a terrible mistake. This is a lot all at once. I really just wanted to get some basic information. And so that's really the starting point of getting in the prospect's shoes, which is how do I stand out in that cacophony of noise? Maybe it's the approach of the messaging, right? So going back to social style, a simple way to play on that knowledge from the quiz, and most of them are expressive, is a lot of us come very factually. Here's the program length, here's the program numbers, bullet point it all out. Expressive people don't function that way. They want stories, they want inspiration, they want to feel, they don't want to get hard data, right? That's the analytical or even the I think you guys call it Analytical and something else.
Analytical, driver, expressive, and amiable.
Driver,
So yeah,
right,
the
right. So
drivers.
they
Yeah.
want matter of fact stuff. And so even the content itself can be repurposed in a different format. So
Hmm.
expressive people want more visual media, right? They want images, they want videos, they want testimonials, they want stories. Ex Analytical people, they want bullet points, they want hard numbers. How much does it cost? How long does it take? Don't give me all the painstaking detail. I just want the facts, just the
Yeah.
facts. And so you can take the same type of content and repurpose and package it differently. That's one. Two, it's certainly keep in mind where this person's at, right? So going back to psychographic, the difference is that it's anything that makes up your inner world, right? Everything from your interests, your affinities, your hopes, your fears, those are the things that get beyond just simply, oh, I'm interested in this program. Why are you interested in this program? Maybe you want to just simply make more money, and that has a certain messaging. Maybe you want a job that's more meaningful, or you can take care of your family. Each of those messagings is another opportunity to change the approach. In a world where people are worried about AI taking over jobs, these type healthcare jobs or jobs in this industry tend to have a buffer against that type of thing because do you want your nurse who takes care of your bedside care to be a robot or to be over the computer? So I think you really need to look at where can I get this information? Before
Hmm.
you ever talk to them, the quiz obviously is one of the biggest ways to do this. They're giving you everything from why they're looking in the school, why they're interested in your program. They literally not only just pick bullet points, but they will literally spell out their deepest fears. I mean, some of them have said everything in our quizzes from, I'm afraid I'm gonna fail to, obviously like how am I gonna afford it and all the rest. But they're telling you point blank, like, here's here's what I'm thinking about and here's what I'm going through before they ever pick up the phone and talk to you. And I think that's
Yeah.
incredible in an age where people are tend to be afraid to, call or to tend to talk to people in person. They want to text, they want to chat, but they're sharing a lot of personal information.
Yeah. Interesting. So you said something I wrote down called you said building rapport, right? First one to build rapport wins, and that strikes me as kind of the thing that's broken in the current model, right? Because what anyone who's ever mystery shopped some schools quickly realizes that yeah, this is like a volume play, and it's a lot of outreach. Hey, I see you're interested. Hey, how you doing? Kind of stuff, right? The analogy I like is okay. I'm going to use a dating analogy. So I like a woman, right? How often should I reach out to her? Well, the women on the call will know the answer to this. It's like it entirely depends on whether she likes me back or not. It's like zero, never to a lot, depending on how she views me, right? Like in a romantic relationship. And it's the same kind of mindset when we're trying to nurture relationships with prospective students. And so that rapport building is the is broken. And my view is that it's broken because we don't know anything about our prospects, right? All we know is their name, their phone number, maybe their program of interest, maybe the campus, and that's it. So Nick, you've alluded to this quiz. I want to create context for anyone that doesn't know know about this. One of the things we do. So our strategy to help schools is we deploy a career training readiness quiz, and it's designed to allow prospects to kind of explore and whether they're a good fit for training. And it's not about connecting to a program so much as it is understanding how this could maybe help them. And one of the things we try to uncover in that is the social styles. Nick, you alluded to this, or you mentioned this. So we know that there's in this quadrant, there's four quadrants of kind of broadly how we're wired in the social styles model. It's similar to Myers-Briggs or DISC profile, that kind of thing. But what we know is that, say, expressive people respond to different things than analytical people, and drivers respond to different things than amiable people. And the expressives naturally are kind of diametrical to the analyticals and the drivers and the amiables. So like when we're connecting interpersonally, some people we totally jive with, and some people were like, oh, I just, I can't connect with that guy. This describes part of the reasons for that, right? So it stands to reason, or Nick, does it stand to, let me ask, does it stand to reason that if you could even just connect messaging to the personality type, that even as a even not knowing that much about the person, that would foster stronger bonds with that prospect?
I think it's a starting point. So before you talk to someone, potentially you don't know anything about them, right? That's why a good initial outreach call is not only just qualifying, is this lead viable? Are they able to get into the program? Do they meet the minimum threshold? It's also a chance to just get a feel for what's this person like, right? And as you're saying here, social style is a good placeholder for that. It's a very simplistic model. You have four overall personalities, right? They're either more or less um, matter of fact, or a little more talkative, or a little more, just give me the information. So it gives you a starting point, but that's really what it's intended to be. And it's a good starting point, especially when I was talking earlier about finite resources, right? I don't know what everyone's teams or budgets look like, but there's only so much time in the day and only so many ways to go about it. And so having four simple social styles gives you a nice focal point to start with simple campaigns that can start based on these social styles. So going back earlier, when talking about the program at a simple level, it's a difference between testimonials and stories and visual imagery versus more matter of fact, here's the numbers.
Yeah,
And that would be the difference from an expressive type to an analytical.
yeah,
But it really only starts there. And as you talk to people, you get a feel for, do they like concise? Do they like to feel and talk a bit? Are there obstacles, right? If there are obstacles, and in the quiz, it's everything from transportation is an issue to childcare. A simple thing is, and it's so easy to overlook because of the amount of work in a day, but writing articles that then can be used as part of a drip campaign that speak to whether or not they have obstacles, and if they do, which ones, right? If you can
mm-hmm.
help to begin to communicate, first off, believe it or not, how few people acknowledge that they took the quiz at all. In fact, before we cracked down on it, some of our own advisors would ask the questions that were in the quiz, and they're like, I answered that already. It's as simple as acknowledgement that, yes, you took the time, 3 minutes, 5 minutes, you filled out this quiz to tell us a lot about you, right? And it's so easy, again, going back to the numbers thing, to get into the mindset. I'm calling, I'm talking to them, I'm asking the same type of questions, right? And it becomes a numbers thing. But first off, validating that person and acknowledging that, yes, you took the time to do this, and I'm going to respond to the type of responses you had. Here's the obstacles. Like, let's figure that out. If we can't figure that out, then there's no point moving forward, right? You're not going to be able to go to school no matter what we do.
Yeah. It strikes me that where vocational training really shines in its delivery compared to, say, a community college, right, which is the most direct competitor for typical enrollment, is in the high touch kind of what I've always thought of as like mothering that they get on campus, right? So if you don't show up to class at your school, somebody notices and, hey, Nick, didn't see you in class today. What's going on? Right? If I don't show up to class at the community college, my little local community college, nobody notices, nobody cares, right? And so that intimacy or that connection, that human connection part, which we're so good at in our delivery, we're not that great at in the kind of pre-enrollment funnel part. We get better as we get to know them, but like certainly the marketing, it's tricky. Um, there's a few things here I just want to touch on, and then I want to dig into this a bit more. So, like the other things we're trying to understand are it's like what's driving the buying decision, right? And so for most prospect, like the aggregate is opportunity for advancement is typically the most dominant one. Work that interests me in the money, right? So there's some like journey. but it does get more nuanced, right? Because we found that um, like if we cross tab this against different other dimensions, and we just have used working, not working as an example here, that okay, for working people, work that interests me is a lower motivation than those that aren't working, right? And opportunity advancement is higher, that scores higher for the working population, as does money, right? So I'm doing something, I want to go somewhere and I want to make more money. That's the story for that cohort of people versus not working people, which is I'm willing to sacrifice money and advancement to do something I find interesting, right? And so if we use this as a way to kind of profile that person, that human being, right, or these categories, like there's an argument that okay, the not workings are more prone to I don't know, existential angst, right? Career, like I can't do another day at this crappy job, and I'm willing to forget. I'm willing to forgo a lot of other benefit to do something that you know gives me meaning, right? Compared to people that either have some meaning or more, I don't know, practical in how they view their work life. And if you were to profile these out as different personas or personality types, it would elicit different stories to those two cohorts. Does that make sense, Nick? Am I being too esoteric?
No, I think it makes sense. It's a simple way of looking at it with a couple different factors, right? So far we've been talking about just social style or just obstacles, but what's nice in some of the reporting you're rolling out in, I think it's your version 6 or 7 for the virtual advisor, is that it has Venn diagrams, right, that overlap multiple variables. So for example, one thing that really emphasized the need to have more like tandem hours with admissions, evenings, weekends, um, was the fact that most of them were working full time and most of them had kids, right? And so if you call during normal business hours, odds are good you're going to get them during the workday. But even before and right after, you got kids getting around for school in the morning, you're coming home to make dinner with the family. So looking at those overlapping diagrams with multiple factors can go a long way to help you understand how they intertwine. And that's obviously what's happening here is motivation and their status, right? So there's a lot of different reporting styles, whether it's a line graph like this or a Venn diagram where you can look at percentages and overlap and figure out, is there something that can be done with this information, right?
Mhm.
So if you're not working, clearly, advancement is like, yeah, that'd be nice, but I kind of need a job right now that works for me, right?
Yeah.
And so it makes intuitive sense, and then you can filter that audience accordingly. So you don't send that message to everybody, even
Okay.
even everyone who says that that's their motivation.
I've got another example here, just of interest. This is by these top three, but by age. So, so we know different programs tend to attract different age ranges as well. So as people get older, they get a little more practical. Is how I'd characterize it, right? So the orange here is the 19 to 24s. So hey, you're 19. I want to be doing something cool, right? I want to be doing something that's interesting, and I'm willing to forego advancement. Yeah, I want money, but like this, I want to be doing. As you get older and life gets it's a little more teeth. You get a little more practical. Sure, that would be nice, but really, I need advancement. I need money, right? I need to, I need to get ahead. So I've got two program examples, but I want to pause here for a sec. What are okay? This is nice, but what are the challenges in implementing, right? Because now in this, I don't know, one-to-one world, this idea of a one-to-one world, you still have to execute on it. And so what are you finding as the kind of limitations now for you, and where are you hoping to get to in this kind of personalization journey?
Hmm. So I think it boils down to in our industry, the solutions we have, like the CRM that you work with. It can work well for the industry you're in, but it's not necessarily the most advanced or technologically capable. So, for example, I hate to admit it, but it makes it very difficult to do the traditional drip campaigns out of the box. There's a lot of automated logic that needs to be developed. And it needs to be done by campaign, which is a limiting factor. And so we try to do a little bit of a A/B test, not necessarily one-to-one with emails as they go out, but as a string of emails that go out for a particular use case. So if we're
Mhm.
trying to promote a particular start date or a particular event, of the three sends, we'll change messaging, we'll change imagery, we'll change the call to action or the subject line. And it's important to just one thing at a time and see what's having the impact. But I would say technologically it's very difficult to have more than just simple field merges. So simple entries into emails, simple things on a website. I envision it getting to a point where blocks or sections of a email or a landing page are technologically capable to be interchanged based on whether they have an obstacle or motivation or something else, but also which one or which ones, and actually building that out within singular, but also as a series of campaigns or landing pages or what have you. And I think that's really where it's going to get to a point where it's not just simply I have to create four entirely separate emails for this. I need to create six entirely emails for that.
Yeah.
It's actually kind of an intermix of this section is four types that will intermix. This section here is six types that will intermix all within the same experience. And then that's where I think it's going to become more manageable and it's going to feel a lot more personalized.
Would is AI the solution to this? So, the serums or the somebody gets technically advanced enough that they could kind of take the data you've collected, and
Hmm.
just for people on the call, like the quiz is our strategy to solve this problem, right? Maybe there's others. This is not. I don't want this to be a pitch for our stuff, but like we've just been of the mind we need to improve the understanding of the human being, right? Like that's at the center of this whole thing. And this is one tactic to understand the human being. Another tactic would be to observe what they look at your website and kind of derive some conclusions about that, right? But will the CRMs or will somebody get to the point where they can kind of construct this understanding of the person and then be trusted to push out comms on your behalf? Will you ever get there, do you think?
With AI.
Yeah.
Yeah, so AI is a mixed bag, right? So AI has a lot of potential, but obviously it's fraught with issues that, they're being solved along the way, hallucinations, unexpected output. But the thing I've learned, having been to a couple conferences now that are specializing in AI, diving into it myself and really figuring out how much of this is applicable day to day. Like, how much can I really use beyond just
Mhm.
spit out 20 subject lines for me to think about? And what I've come to realize is AI is really just a tool that is best served when you actually are already an expert at it. A lot of people look at AI as this is going to supplement my shortcomings, right? I don't write well. I want this to produce my press releases or articles. I don't tend to craft very well done emails. I'm going to have this create an email for me. The reality is that's where the so-called AI slop comes from, right? You give generic input, you give unclear direction, and it produces something that's standard or substandard in nature.
Mhm.
When you are able to understand a subject or a skill in such a way that you can give very specific direction, you can give guardrails, this kind of writing or this kind of style, but not that, and be able to interpret the output at a pretty subject matter expert level, then you're able to produce something that doesn't have that slop taste or feel to it. And that's the thing that I think a lot of people are quickly learning is that really at best it's a way to kind of supplement what one person can do, but it's definitely not a replacement. I would be very hesitant with AI solutions. I'm very aware of them with chatbots. I'm aware of them with being sales development reps. And I think at a very simple level, it could certainly handle that, especially if you're limited with personnel or time in the day. But I think its real strength is to be used in very specialized ways.
I went to, I can't remember the EDUCAUSE. It's a big conference. It was in Nashville, and it's a big, I guess, technology conference for traditional colleges and universities. So huge conference floor, tons of money spent on this thing. And it kind of reminded me of the heady days of career education when it was all lead generators, because it was every other booth was a AI agent offering. Like literally everyone, half the vendors there were selling some agentics solution. And I think the dream for that part of the education market is that they can just deploy a AI admissions agent or recruiting agent or registrar agent. They're going to talk to the person and do all the mechanics of it, and no human being will ever have to be involved in it. Is that realistic for career education?
Can you do that question again?
Yeah. So you're familiar with these idea of these AI agents, right? The
Hmm.
agentics they call it. That's the
Hmm.
term. So at this conference, there's literally hundreds, probably 100 vendors selling some agent solution, right? That would be this is your career service AI agent. Here's your admissions AI agent, and they're somehow going to just replace the human being part of this, and somehow be able to automate these functions. I personally, it grosses me out, but I'm curious if you think it'll ever get to the point where it's useful for you or you'd ever
Yeah,
trust it.
yeah. No, I think that's the question on everyone's mind as the bigger companies are obviously laying off people and supplementing with AI solutions, agentic in nature, or otherwise. I think one of the things that protects us is as people are adapting to the evolution of AI, they are becoming more sophisticated. You can see this with video or image outputs that are shared on social media, and more people are picking up on it, even though they look more realistic than ever. Everything from the lighting of it, the approach, the feel of it. There's always something that just doesn't feel quite right. And as people are encountering it more and more throughout their daily life, I live in the Bay Area, so I see a billboard every mile that says, hey, AI is in our HR tool, it's in our marketing tool, it's in this, it's in that. So it's clearly ubiquitous, but it's certainly getting to a point where people are becoming more sophisticated because they're encountering it so much and they're growing with the evolution of its sophistication, where they're starting to detect it in its different ways and forms, right? Especially with visual, but you can sense it in the writing style. There's something that is more, it's almost a mockery of copying what it is we've done, right? Because so the way AI works, it's a model based on a lot of data, right? You input a lot of information and it develops patterns at best. It
Yeah.
isn't truly generating anything new or fresh. What it is doing is it's understanding these patterns and going, okay, other people who have done something similar to this, I'm going to spit out that. And the more you can kind of educate on what exactly you're looking for, it'll do a better and better output. And I've tested this with press releases and articles and things of that nature that even surprised me because it was able to put out something unique and compelling and engaging. But at the end of the day, yeah, it doesn't feel quite right. And so going back to can we replace the human experience? Well, if an agentic AI solution can replace your advisor or your person that's reaching out to these prospects, then that's a training issue first off. Because the whole idea is you want to talk to somebody that you can connect with. And again, the AI agentic agent is only able to kind of replicate or facsimilate that experience, but it's not able to create a truly unique human connection.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that protects us. Like, I don't know what industry some of your schools are in, or if you're even in the US or not. I'd be curious to know all that. But we do healthcare education. And so, again, talking about can we truly replace that human connection in those moments where you're potentially in very serious medical or healthcare situations and you're worried about outcomes or you want to have something beyond simply the solution provided, you want to talk to somebody. You don't want to have a telecommunication experience or a chat experience, right? You want to have that understanding that this person doesn't just in a taught way understand it, like factually understand it, but actually can resonate because they are capable of going through the same experience as you truly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so in that regard, I don't think so.
Yeah, it's almost I feel like we're moving into this authenticity crisis, right? It's just and as technology gets more sophisticated and I don't know clever at simulating things, it feels less and less real, and then that wanting to be grounded in something that feels more true will be more important.
Yeah, and you can already start to see the backlash, right? So to make it more specific, the search engines, for example, are going to start marking content that is detected as AI, and they're actually going to put that in the SERP results, the search engine results, right? And they'll notify it on the website. But even before that becomes a thing, you can just feel an article or a piece of content that just feels like generic, mass produced, right? There's this feeling of the old internet and the new internet, and this feeling of it's become very commercialized, big brand. A lot of this output has created content that's created for the search engine result first and not the end user, and something that's meaningful and driven by passion and not just a lot of effort to get like to mass produce it for the search results.
Interesting. Okay, I just want to go through this example because I think it's germane to this conversation. So what we just wanted to illustrate here that there's two programs, cosmetology, medical billing, and coding. They largely, from a demographic point of view, enroll a similar person. It's typically a woman. Cosmetology skews a bit younger. But when we dig into it more, they're quite different people, right? And so if we're constructing at least a persona around each of these programs, right, just at the top level of marketing, well, Cosmos, it's younger. Hey, they really want interesting work. Like that's what's driving it. I want to be the unique me. Less, high school, not any college, expressive personality, medical billing coding, way more analytical, motivated by money, have done some college or have a college degree, right? And vastly different, and including what is motivating them, right? So we've got here interesting work factors is kind of the highest, right? 25%. Money's an advancement in this cosmetology person. It's money, right? Like they want to support the family. This I'm doing this job because it provides logistical benefit to me, you know. And there's some other categories here, employment, personal challenges, whatnot. And so for us, like it seems to me the first kind of milestone for any school that's trying to get better at this, right? Like trying to lean into that authenticity in their communications and avoid the either heavy-handed sales at the front end or like this kind of, in a way, it's fake personalization via automation, right? This AI simulated humanity that feels kind of gross, is to understand their prospects, right? And so part of that can be done on the marketing front end through tactics like, a quiz to uncover these kind of things. Some of it can be done by better documenting the interactions the school has with the prospect, right? So, like, are you guys good at, in your CRM, are you good at capturing the nuances of the human being, right? When somebody actually talks to a prospect? Is that,
Yeah, I can't speak as much to that. I'm on the marketing end of it. So we are absolutely capturing every last entry made by the quizzes. We sometimes add additional fields to certain forms.
yeah,
Beyond like we do things like how'd you hear about us and all that, but sometimes it can be things like how far out are you looking to go back to school, right? And that can
mm,
change the approach. Somebody who's looking right away versus a year out, it's helpful to get that before you take your typical approach to kind of pounds,
Yeah.
for lack of better words. But I think email is certainly a good starting point, right? You're able to incorporate facets of their answers from the quiz or from how you progressively profile your lead over time. And progressive profiling is just a fancy way of saying, you ask them questions, you gather more information. So even if they don't take the quiz, you're still able to get a little bit here and there and then populate that over time and learn about your lead that way.
Yeah.
So email is certainly the contender for acting on that information, but it's not the endpoint. I mean, you're talking about SEO and blog posts on the website. Obviously, that's open to everybody, but you can certainly curate which ones can be seen to particular audiences, either by how you categorize or tag them, but again, also through email or social media.
Hmm.
I think also the thing that we haven't touched on as much is also using the different communication channels. So everybody wants to call, text, and email, but sometimes it's good to use each other's communication channel to corral them in the right direction, right? So texting's really good. It's more familial. It's short, right? It's very brief. You're trying to create a human experience. You get these texts from time to time, political or sales in nature, and you just go like, yeah, this is junk. Like nobody in my daily life talks to me this way. So making sure that that messaging is done in a way that resonates as, oh, I'm actually talking to an advisor who is in fact a human being, not an AI or an automation dripping this text out. But more importantly, using the text to leverage for longer conversations or bigger items. Hey, just wanted to give you a quick text. I sent you this email with more information about it. Be sure to check it out. I've even recommended texting before the call saying, hey, this is my number. This is Nick from Gurnick. You reached out. I'm going to be calling you from this number in a little bit, right? Because a lot of people want to just call right away. But think about it. You get all these daily calls from unknown numbers. I almost never, unless I know for a fact somebody says, I'm going to call you at 3 p.m. It's a 408 area code or whatever the area code, then I'm kind of looking for it, right? And so priming the lead with different communication channels like that can go a long way, to say that, hey, this number you're going to get a call from, as opposed to calling first, leaving the message, and then texting. A lot of people do that, right? And so personalization is being able to understand where the user's at, meet the student where they are. That's literally all personalization is. At the end of the day, you're just meeting them where they are, how they are. And so these are all attempts to do that before you talk to them. And even as you get to know them, just respond accordingly. And so to kind of take this big picture approach of like what can be and what we're starting to do, I think easy action items, try to incorporate different merged fields into your emails, right? Talk a little more about the motivation or the obstacle instead of just simply the program. Try changing the tone a little bit of the same content so it's more factual or more visual in nature and see how it goes. And then from there, you can certainly try to reiterate and make it a little more um, personalized and complicated.
Interesting. I don't know if we've implemented this for you yet. It's a new feature, and it's an attempt to do that. So one of the things that happens with an admissions person is they're like busy, right? They're making their phone calls, and so we've built it's like basically a quick summary, right? So it just takes the key points about that prospect you can read in about 10 seconds, right? So if you show up on I'm in my CRM and okay, I got to phone Nick, and there's a little prompt that say, okay, hey, Nick's amiable, he's interested in nursing, he's motivated by fulfilling meaningful work, wants advancement, he's lacks child care support, and is looking for online programs. So build some rapport through small talk and success stories, right? This prompt's a bit long for that, but like would something like that in your mind be effective as helping um, the doers just have quick context around the human being to create a better connection earlier?
Yeah, so I think marketing and admissions absolutely need to parallel their approach and messaging. And so when you're going through a lot of leads, the adoption level was commensurate to how intrusive it was to gather that information. And so what I mean by that is at first we would just get the URL and you'd have to go in virtual advisor and look at all this
Yeah.
information. You're like, yeah, I don't have time for that. Then we mapped each entry one to one with fields, and they're like, yeah, I gotta scroll down, look like that's too much. Then the Chrome or the extension browser extension allowed actually for the widget to pop up in the side panel. So if they took the quiz or not, you would see that panel, and then it would actually have green and red for signals that either said yes, they answered this in a way that means they can move forward or not. Now, getting that extension and that experience to be a quick summary that they can peruse very quickly like this absolutely takes all of that intrusive aspects out of it, where they can look at it in one place. It's a quick summary, highlights anything that is most pertinent to the conversation, right? Anything stopping them, anything concerning them, and some high level aspects about their psychographics. And then that allows them to at least have a starting point. But again, at the end of the day, this is all a starting point. Personalization is always going to end up being one to one. And how does that happen? Asking questions, building rapport,
Yeah.
getting them to talk about what's going on. And the funny thing is, with call recordings and things I've had the chance to listen to as part of the feedback loop for our advisors, is it's very interesting when you push back on no's or obstacles and really try to understand like what's going on, that a lot of them just want to feel validated. They don't want to feel like another number, right? And it's so easy with the volume and how hard it is to hire and keep people, or to hire enough people to meet this volume, that it's very easy to get into a rut and just sort of, you know, go through the calls one after another, that it really can be felt by them when you're asking questions and then you're sitting back and letting them express what's going on. That's really what personalization is about. They want to be felt and they want to be validated. Everything else is downwind of that.
Interesting. It's funny as you're saying that. I was thinking, it's we can get all heady about this stuff and theoretical and whatever, but really, where the
Mhm.
rubber meets the road is the ability to implement, and
Mhm.
and the kind of the admissions team's kind of um, ground zero for that. And so anything that doesn't make isn't easy for them to do as they're trying to manage the demands of their workload, it's not going to get done.
Exactly. Yep. So we've tried more and more to make it in their face, quick to
Yeah.
consume, quick to find, and be able to be acted on. And that's the thing with data and all this information, is how do you make heads or tails of it? How do you respond to it? And so I think the more intertwined it is in just your daily life, the workday, the easier it's going to be to act on. Whether it's the
Okay.
marketing side and putting the stuff together, or the admission side and acting on it with your prospects.
Okay. We have a couple minutes. So, can you, if you were to offer some advice to people on the call, what would it be? And then we'll open it up. If anyone has any questions, you can either type it in the chat, or if you're feeling brave, you can unmute yourself and ask your question.
So my quick takeaway would be, go through the experience, right? Go through the experience of being a prospect. Fill out your form, fill out the other competitors' forms, fill out the quiz, get a call, get a text, see what it's like. Do you feel heard? Do you feel validated, or do you feel like a number? And then go from there. The personalization is really just meeting people where they are. That's really all it is. Everything else is a means to an end.
Wonderful. Awesome wisdom. Okay, the floor is open for anyone attending. We'll just briefly pause to see if anyone has any questions or thoughts or wants to share perception. Okay, we have a shy group. I think that's it, Nick. Nick, thank you so much. This was a super interesting conversation. I very much appreciate your time and sharing your perspective on this. Thank you very much.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. And I get that it's a wide, dynamic, evolving conversation. So let it digest it. And if you got questions, Shane, feel free to.
Yes, how do they get a hold of you?
Uh, so they can just use my email. Do you want me to put in the chat, or are you guys going to do that in
Or
the
you can
email?
just say it and we can send it out as
So it's
well.
just my first initial last name at Gurnick. So NCOLOMBO at Gurnick, GURNICK.edu.
Wonderful. Okay. Folks, thanks so much for attending. We appreciate it. And Nick, thank you very much. You have a great day.
You too. Have a good one.